Hello and welcome to In Depth with me, Rausan Pereira on Rajya Sabha Television. Our topic today is labour movement, the workers' struggle for better working conditions and its impact on productivity and development of the economy. The workers' struggle is celebrated as Labour Day. It's also known as International Workers' Day or May Day. In India, we observe it on May 1st. The idea is to pay tribute to workers across the country. The origin of the day dates back to the 19th century when trade unionists, socialists and communists in the United States demanded better working conditions, timings and wages for labourers. They sought an 8-hour movement where only 8 hours in a day were utilised for work, 8 hours for recreation and 8 hours for rest. In India, successive governments have contributed to the welfare of workers. Laws have been enacted and amended to enable a better deal for workers. Let's see how they have fared over the years. May Day or May 1st has been a day for the workers of the world to raise their voice. It was on this day that the US police fired on a workers' demonstration in 1886. The incident made the day a memorial to the struggle of those who had the right to better working conditions.
From the great pyramids of Egypt to the majestic Taj Mahal in Agra and the tallest brick minaret Qutub Minar in Delhi. It's a story of millions of workers united by their labor in erecting these monuments as a testament to the evolution of civilization down the ages. The huge, heavy stones that were shaped and transported to build the iconic pyramids, the intricate carvings on the Taj Mahal were all made possible by the efforts of these workers. Actually, the story of human civilization could well be the story of human labor and development. Human labor built cities, factories, ships, tall buildings, rockets that finally reached the moon and other planets. It is also shaping the desire to touch the sun. Whenever such achievements are talked about, credit is given to the progress of science and the human quest for learning and development. But one section of society whose contribution is always overlooked is the worker or the labor class. Without their contribution, skilled or otherwise, these accomplishments would not have been possible. Even today, workers across the world are contributing day and night to make our lives better through their efforts by building roads, houses, machines, hospitals, etc. They're the engine of the economy, but they remain poorly treated and underpaid. As they are illiterate and ignorant, they can't bargain for better wages, and being poor, they're always in debt. However, our workers deserve more consideration, better pay and even better health care. It's this objective that led to the celebration of Labour Day to honour their hard work. Labour Day has its origins in the labour union movement, specifically the 8-hour day movement that advocated 8 hours for work, 8 hours for recreation and 8 hours for rest. For most countries, Labour Day is synonymous or linked with International Workers' Day that takes place on 1st of May. For other countries, Labour Day is celebrated on a different date, often a day that has a special significance for the labour movement of that country. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
When did workers start questioning the treatment being meted out to them, and when did they realize that they should start the fight for their rights? Let's look for answers to these questions in the history of labour movements.
For a long time in its evolution, mankind relied on human labor to meet personal needs. But as these needs multiplied along with population, so did the need for labor. And as the demand for labor grew, it began to command a price. Producers determine a product's price in the market, but not so with the labor. For the workers, ironically, it is the market and the buyer who decide the price.
Dignity of labor should be there, which is missing. They should be given proper wages. Till today, we are fighting for minimum wages. Many of the workforce is yet not covered under Minimum Wages Act, so that struggle goes on. And we have been asking for rupees 18,000 and minimum wage to be fixed up all over India, which is not happening. Prices are rising heavily. It is easier for those who are government employees. They have a pay commission system. Their dearance allowance and other things, yearly it gets covered. But as far as public sector is concerned, they also have wage negotiation system. But whole vast contract labor force in the government and the public sector, as well as in the private sector, that vast majority, 95% of the labor force doesn't have facility of dearance allowance. So prices are rising and the wages are not increasing accordingly.
In Europe, the labour movement began during the Industrial Revolution when agricultural jobs declined and employment moved to more industrial areas. In fact, employment opportunities in the agricultural sector reduced with the onset of the Industrial Revolution. Many labour parties were formed at the start of the 18th century and early 19th century. At around the same time, the works of Friedrich Engels and Karl Marx led to the formation of Communist International. Their policies were summarized in the Communist Manifesto. In 1871, workers in France organized a rebellion leading to the formation of Paris Commune. The roots of Labour Day also began during the same era. Workers started revolting against oppression in America as well. They started a movement in support of 8 hours of work days, and during a general strike in Chicago in May 1886, police opened fire at workers. The event led to the death of many workers. It is to commemorate this day that International Labour Day is celebrated every year on 1st of May. Since then, May Day has become a symbol of the struggle of labourers to achieve dignity.
The struggle began in the 19th century. Now we are in 21st century. The struggle began then. The workers were being treated as animals, working for 14 hours, 16 hours, 18 hours, no wage question, no appropriate wages and no equality of wages or no social security and no workplace any benefits or security. From that time when the workers began for fixed term, fixed hours of working, this is how they began their struggle. And on 1st May 1886, ultimately Chicago workers came on street that we will work only for 8 works. The agitation began. There was oppression, suppression, their leaders were hanged, they were tried, and some were killed in bomb explosion. So from that day onward, 1st May became a symbol of struggle, symbol of fighting for justice, dignity of labor, for your wages, for your fixed working hours.
Industrial Revolution in India started much later than in other parts of the world. The credit for raising their voice to bring improvement in salaries and facilities of the workers goes to MSS Bengali, who formed an organization in 1875. In 1881, the British made industrial laws. In the same year, Meghaji Lokhande held a conference in Bombay Presidency to improve the condition of labourers. His demands for a weekly holiday and a half-hour break every working day were accepted by most industrialists. In 1905, the press workers established a separate union for themselves in Calcutta. In 1907, the Postal Service staff formed a separate union for themselves in Bombay. In 1910, the Labour Welfare Association was established in Bombay. After the Soviet Revolution in 1917, labour movement flourished not only in the country but throughout the world. In 1920, the Indian National Trade Union Congress was established. In 1923, the Trade Union Act was passed and the trade union got constitutional approval in India. Many more organizations were formed after this. After independence in 1947, it was thought that the workers would finally see good days. Many laws were also introduced for their well-being, but the struggle for their rights still continues. With inputs from Leena Sharma, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's time for a short break now, but our program will continue on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Many people feel that it is an issue-less election. Siddaramaiah has appropriated the Kannadiga pride by talking about the state flag issue.
In the entire country, Congress has lost state by state. They are only depending upon Siddaramaiah. State is looted.
If Lingayats are divided, which party stands to gain by this splitting of the votes?
They are not going to be divided. While voting, they have got their own idea. They will take their own decision. It is not so easy to assess the Lingayat community.
Your party's alliance with BSP, of course, in Karnataka is at a smaller level. Is it also an indication for the larger battle of 2019?
To go beyond Karnataka is an issue. I have not yet made up my mind.
Watch To The Point with the National President JDS and former Prime Minister of India H.D. Devagowda only on Rajya Sabha TV.
Watch The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausan Pereira, at 6:30 p.m.
Mathematics stands at the top of everything. No science can be done without mathematics. As a scientist, I have always been suspicious and very dissatisfied with my work. I had always believed that the education that we have been subjected to is a kind of highly compartmentalized education.
Watch Eureka with Professor Bidyendu Mohandev, eminent scientist, on Saturday 4 p.m. and Sunday 12 noon, only on Rajya Sabha television.
Watch Laws in the Making with me, Amritanshu Rai, at 10:30 p.m. today.
Welcome back. You're watching In Depth on Rajya Sabha television. Well, in India, workers are divided into two broad categories, the organized and the unorganized sectors. The gap between the two is huge, and it is a humongous task for the government to give relief to laborers in the unorganized sectors. For them, government schemes either arrive late or never reach them.
अपने मर्जी कैसे जाएंगे सर, अब उसका पैसा ले रखे हैं।
अगला साल भी यही करे, फिर अगला साल भी वही परेशानी।
432 रुपया में वही 5-6 साल से खट रहे हैं वही रेट में।
और बच्चे को पढ़ाई में साथ में खटवाते हैं।
Sweat, hard work and a struggle to make two ends meet. That's the laborer's daily struggle for survival. At times, even a break from the hard grind is a distant dream. The government's efforts to improve the lot of the workers in the unorganized is hampered by the fact that there is not much data about the exact size of this sector. In such a scenario, it isn't easy to make policies or plan for them. A survey conducted by the National Sample Survey Organization, or NSSO, in 2009-2010, however, came up with some vital figures. According to it, India has at least 46.5 crore workers. Out of this, workers working in the organized sector are 2.8 crore, while workers working in the unorganized sector are 43.7 crore. The unorganized sector has the largest number of workers in the agriculture sector, that about 24.6 crore. 4.4 crore are in the construction work and the rest in manufacturing and service sectors. The Economic Survey of 2007-8 said 93% of the country's workforce is engaged in their own businesses or are working in the unorganized sector, which in a sense will make the unorganized sector the heart of India's economic activity.
Today, in the name of labor organization, there are various organizations, but they are just a part or labor being of a political party. So, working as a being of political party, it's not a organization of labor, it's just a division of the labor movement, because their basic or prime objective is to fulfill the concern of the political party, their political objective, instead of fulfilling the concern of the workers. So the right thing should be, and that's what BMS has adopted, to be a non-political. Workers' movement should be a non-political movement.
India's economy gathered momentum with the coming of the economic liberalization in 1990s. It saw a corresponding mushrooming of daily wage workers or laborers in the unorganized sector. But the gap between the status of workers in the organized and unorganized sector is quite large even today. The Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008 was enacted to provide for the social security and welfare of the unorganized workers. Those covered are home-based workers, self-employed workers, or daily wage workers. It also includes workers who work in the organized sector but do not fall in the Workers' Compensation Act 1923, Industrial Disputes Act 1947, Employees State Insurance Act 1948, Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952, the Maternity Benefit Act 1961, and the Gratuity Payment Act.
According to government, about 50 crore workforce census says. According to us, it is much more than even 50 crore. Many people are left out who are in the self-employment field or in the family businesses. Those workforce gets deleted, and mostly women get deleted in that category.
Labor force working from home is categorized as the unorganized sector. Under this category come occupations like beedi rolling, incense stick making, papad making, tailoring, weaving, manual scavenging, loaders, domestic workers and drivers. Women and children form a huge part of the unorganized sector. According to the government's labor data, in 2011, women formed 26% of the total workforce in the unorganized sector. Most women in rural areas are engaged in farming and agriculture. In urban areas, 80% women are engaged as domestic helps in the unorganized sectors, along with small businesses like building and construction workers.
Situation is pathetic. Dignity of labor should be there, which is missing. They should be given proper wages. Till today, we are fighting for minimum wages. Many of the workforce is yet not covered under Minimum Wages Act, so that struggle goes on. And we have been asking for rupees 18,000 and minimum wage to be fixed up all over India, which is not happening. 95% of the labor force doesn't have facility of day rent allowance.
According to the 2011 census, 44 lakh children between the ages of 5 and 14 years are employed in the unorganized sector. Apart from this, an estimated 5 crore workers are employed in construction, 42 lakh as street vendors and 47 lakh as domestic workers. That includes mostly women. According to the Socio-Economic and Caste Census 2011, India has at least 1,82,000 manual scavengers. The government says its policies have benefited lakhs of workers. These policies include the Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme, National Family Welfare Program, Mother Security Scheme, Handloom Workers Comprehensive Welfare Scheme, Handicrafts Artisans Comprehensive Welfare Scheme, and the National Health Insurance Scheme. The present government has approved the formation of the National Database of Unorganized Workers and the issuance of the Unorganized Worker Identification Number, or UWIN.
Government has come up with a draft that is called Universal Social Security Code. First time after independence, this code is going to cover the unorganized sector. 93% unorganized sectors, they are being covered, they will be covered by this code. So first time it is coming up. So gradually the labor movement, this pressure tactics is gaining the ground and some fruits are about to come. So we are hopeful.
It is also important to understand the structure of the unorganized sector that comprises mostly of the rural population that is engaged in traditional occupations in the villages, but when they migrate to urban areas for better work opportunities, they form a big chunk of the unorganized sector. While migration doesn't guarantee any social security or government benefits to the laborers, what is ironical is that they even fail to get associated with the trade unions, eventually becoming part of the unorganized or informal sector. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, over the years, a new class of labour took shape. Employed with the government, over 40% of them are on temporary or contract basis. Some don't even have a contract. In government companies and committees, these figures of temporary staff almost touches 70%. What remains a cause of concern for them are minimum wages and social security.
In the past few years, the government laid emphasis on many issues, and of these, the most important one is the labour reform. The government laid emphasis on releasing industries from monitoring and inspection. The most important labour reform includes the Apprentices Act Amendment Bill 2014. These amendments facilitated factories to hire more trainee labourers. These trainee labourers were to get 30% less than fixed minimum wages. Earlier, owners could be sent to 6 months in jail for violation of the Apprentices Law that has now been eliminated. Along with this, there is no need to take any permission from the Labour Department advisory to give training to apprentices. According to the government, these law reforms were important to attract investors, while the labour organisation is protesting because they think all these reforms benefit only company owners.
There was a training component and some percentage to be absorbed in the factory where they take, and then after particular time they have to go out and go for the job. Now Apprentice Act, no limit there. That means for as many years you will use a worker as apprentice who will never have worker status, who can never demand minimum wages, who can never demand social security, nothing coverage.
Overall, labour law reformers have called for the elimination of 16 central laws. There have also been many major amendments in different laws. The Factory Act Amendment Bill 2016, Section 64 and 65 has a provision to increase overtime. In Section 64, there is a provision to increase overtime for labourers from 50 to 100 hours. Amendments in Section 65 increased it from 75 to 115 hours. According to the bill, factory worker has the choice to decide whether to work overtime or not. According to the government, a large number of workforce is required to attract investors under Digital India, Make in India and Skill India.
The laws pertaining to women are also made very bad. Night shift has been introduced. Our girls who are working in odd hours in factories or otherwise, those girls are in very precarious conditions in export promotion zones also, in hosiery sector, garment sector, or in aqua farming culture, slavery, bonded slavery type of conditions, and not being allowed to have unions. That we are already finding.
To improve conditions of farmers, the government brought Factory Act Amendment Bill 2014. According to the government, the 2016 Factories Act Amendment Bill does not discard the 2014 bill. But the 2016 bill was brought to bring some important amendments in the previous bill, although both the bills are still not implemented as laws. Under the provision of the Factory Act Amendment Bill, the right to increase the number of employees in factories has been given to the states. Earlier, it was under the centre. Working hours have been increased to 12. Earlier, working hours were 8, that included a 1-hour lunch break. The right to file a case of industrial dispute has been given to state government that was previously with the labour inspector. There is also a provision of stripping off the labour inspector of all the power in this bill. In the past few years, the government passed 54 amendments in all in Factories Act 1948, Apprentices Act 1961 and the Labour Law Act 1988. These acts have provisions for facilities at workplaces, rules related to overtime, allowing women to work in the night shifts and punishment for violation of the labour laws.
Changes in labour law, I think it is required also. Many of the laws are of British periods. So the context of that days and today's lot of difference has come up. So we are also demanding that there should be change in the labor laws, and government is coming up to change the labor laws, some of the clauses which are meant for protection and security of the laborers. That we will not allow. We will resist for that, and since last 2, 3, 4 years, a resist movement, a protest is going on.
Parliament passed the Maternity Benefit Amendment Bill 2016 to protect the jobs of women during pregnancy and childbirth. Under the Act, the bill extends maternity leave of up to 2 children from 12 weeks to 26 weeks for all women. A woman with 2 or more children is entitled to 12 weeks of maternity leave. For commissioning mothers or mothers adopting a child, the bill provides for a 12-week maternity leave. It also makes it mandatory for all organizations with over 50 employees to have a crèche. Maternity Benefit Amendment Bill 2016 seeks to amend the Maternity Benefit Act 1961. The Maternity Benefit Act 1961 protects women and provides them benefits during the maternity period. The Act allows fully paid leave to the mothers to take care of the child. The Act is applicable on all organizations with 10 or more employees. To protect the rights of the workers, the government has passed Employees Compensation Amendment Bill 2016, Payment of Gratuity Amendment Bill 2017. The government also decided to integrate different labor laws pertaining to wages into one labor code. The Labour Code on Wages Bill will consolidate the Payment of Wages Act 1936, Minimum Wages Act 1948, the Payment of Bonus Act 1965 and the Equal Remuneration Act 1976. The government's move was opposed by labour unions and left parties who warned the government of nationwide strikes if the bill was passed. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
That's it on this edition of In Depth. Until next time, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.